Good afternoon, Stampers. This afternoon I'm going to show you how to make this wonderful little nugget cake. The supplies that you'll need to create this are some designer series pattern paper, some coordinating cardstock, some circles framelits. The adhesives that we're going to be using are taryn tape or sticky strip, Tombow, liquid glue. Of course, you're going to need Hershey's Nuggets. And to assemble your cake layers, you're going to need 3 different items for 3 different sizes. You're going to need 3 rolls, empty rolls of either sticky strip or taryn tape. They'll need to be all the same so that you have the same diameter. You'll need an empty button or brad container. And you'll also need something that's much smaller in diameter. Here, I've used a cap from a can of mousse. We'll start our cake making by preparing each component for the layered cake. To start off with, you're going to take your designer paper, and to wrap each nugget, you're going to need a strip of paper that is 1 inch by 3 inches. What I did to make it a little bit easier in the whole applying adhesive to a little narrow area, I calculated that I would need approximately 5 to 6 nuggets for the top layer. I would need 9 to 10 for the middle layer, and I would need 11 to 12 for the bottom layer. So what I did is I applied taryn tape, which your paper trimmer will cut through, along the top and along the bottom. My width is 3 inches by the length of the number of nuggets because it's 1 inch per nugget. To wrap the nuggets, you're going to want to do it so that the nuggets do not come unwrapped underneath the designer paper. In order to do this, you're going to take your nugget and you're going to apply the designer paper opposite the flap on the back of the candy. Usually you're going to apply it right underneath the name. In doing so, you're going to wrap and crease, wrap all the way along and crease it again, like so. Set those aside. I've already cut and completed the rest of the nuggets that we'll need for the project. The next portion of our cake assembly is to take the 3 rolls that you had and tape them together. I've applied a little bit of tape to make them all stack. You could also glue these together. I just found that taping was a little bit faster. After that, you're going to take your taryn tape and you're going to apply it to the outside of your rolls. And I just went all the way around and I did 2 layers. You're going to do that for the button container as well. As you can see, I wasn't able to get all the label off. Doesn't matter, it's not going to be seen. And for the top layer, you're going to take your cap or your lid, whatever you have, and you're going to cut it in half. It needs to be about 1 inch wide in order for your nugget to fit on it. After you've cut it in half, you're also going to do the same as far as taping it together. You can see in here where I've taped it together, and you're going to want to apply 2 rows of taryn tape or sticky strip on that. So now that you've wrapped your nuggets and you've prepped your cake bases, let's get to making a cake. So you're going to want to remove both liners from the sticky strip or taryn tape, whatever you've used. You're going to set your cake base down and you're just going to start attaching your nuggets snugly next to one another. You're going to want to stand them up and make sure that there's no gaps. Unfortunately, there's really not too much of a way to test fit anything. I did a lot of test fitting prior to coming up with the completed cake design, and I found that these tended to work best. So this one uses 11, and we'll set that aside. And be careful not to touch anything else, they'll stick. This is the top. Now, you might have a little gap there, and if that's the case, then you can just put it in a little tightly. And we'll do the middle layer. Doesn't matter which way your container is oriented, up or down, doesn't matter. It's going to stay closed. And I've even used done it with an open one. And you have your three layers. Sometimes you might have to move them around just a little bit if you didn't get them quite close enough, and that one I didn't get quite close enough. So let's just move it over and make a little room for it. There we go. So next what we're going to do is you're going to need to cut your framelits. The 4 sizes I cut were 4 5/8, that's the largest scallop circle. The next one is a 4-inch one, 3 1/4, and 2 3/8. You can set it on top to see how much overhang you have. And see, they all fit nicely on there. If you have a larger one for the base, you can always use a larger one. That's the largest one I had, and that one will go on top. So now that you've test fit these and you see that they all fit on your bases, you're gonna now glue them to the bases. I'm just gonna start with the top one. And basically what I did is I added a little bit of Tombow to the inside. That's going to be the part that's going to be touching the circle. Because these are angled chocolates, sometimes they do not touch on the edges. And then I'm just gonna make sure I glue it right in the center. And you might need to look over it and stand and press gently. When you do that, we'll go to the next one. And I'm just applying like 2 dots in the little triangled area, but you can draw a whole line. Do whatever you want. And I would use a stronger glue to make sure that it stays adhered. And you do want to make sure it's centered. Kind of press down a little bit. Tombow does tend to dry relatively quickly, which is good. This one here is a little bit heavier. And you just kind of want to gently flip it over so that you don't knock any of the candies off. And on this one, since you've got that hard base, you might want to put a little bit of glue around the base as well. You don't have to, but I do find that it might be a little bit more secure. And you can stack them. This kind of gives you a test fit. And I'm going to go ahead and apply the top one. And since I wrote on it, I'm just going to flip it over so that you don't see the number on there. And if you let your cake dry stacked, it does add a little bit of weight to it, which is good because you do want a little bit of pressure on it so that all your layers do adhere. As you can see, this is angled, and so really this is the only part that touches on the gluing process. So you can see it here. Okay, so I'm going to just let my cake hang out here for a little bit and dry, and we'll be back to finish it. So to finish off our cake, we need to glue each one of these layers all together now. So we're going to do pretty much the same thing that we did when we glued them to the base. We're going to apply a dot of glue to each one of the little triangle areas on your nuggets. And I just went all the way around. side, you want to make sure it's centered. Looks pretty good. And yeah, you do have a little bit of slide and a little bit of wiggle room. You want to press it down just a little bit to make sure that that does adhere. And then you want to do the next layer. And as you can see, I am kind of using a generous dollop of glue because it will dry clear and you're not going to see it anyway. And then we'll put this layer on so you can see when I pick it up, it's all staying together. Okay. So this is going to need to set just for a little bit so that we can pick it up and do our decorating for it. If you'll recall, our finished cake looks like this, and it has a topper. Has the cake topper and it has little ghosts and things like that on it. So I did stamp my little ghosts, and I did some fussy cutting of all those ghosts. I also punched out some flowers that we're going to use. And I also punched out the word boo a few times, and I added them together to make a little bit of a thicker dimensional. Now, in my original cake, I had adhered it to the cake with a toothpick. So I'm going to prepare that now. Put a little bit of glue on there. And I cut my toothpick probably about 1.5 inches long. Going to adhere that on there. I did apply some dimensionals so that we have a little bit of space there. And this one, in the photo, it's going to look backwards, which I understand that because, yeah, it currently is backwards. But when it goes in your cake, it's going to be the right way. So I'm just going to kind of let that set over there to dry, make sure it's straight. Bring our cake back in here. And see, I went to try to move it and it wasn't quite adhered yet. So this is what your cake looks like from the side. And you can still see the glue. As it dries, the glue does become clear. As you can see, you can't see your glue. For the top, I marked the center point on my circle, and I just used a paper piercer to pierce a generous little hole there. Let's see if this is dry enough to go in. And look at that, it is. So we'll let that hang out. You can see how that looks. The ghosts, I just applied a little bit of glue and I glued them randomly around the cake. Some kind of going out, some kind of going just wherever. Like I said, the Tombow dries really quickly, so it's good to use. You can also use the fine tip glue pen. That works well. Sometimes you have to hold it in place just a little bit so that it doesn't slide. Your flowers. I put a dot of glue down and then put the flower on top of it. And you'll do that all the way around the cake. I'm going to let that one hang out to dry. But once again, let me show you the finished cake and the decorating. And in no time, you'll have your own Halloween nugget cake.